On Christmas Eve, my parents took me aboard the last bus back to our hometown. I bawled and stubbornly insisted on leaving, so my helpless parents had to take me off the bus. That very night, that bus was involved in a terrible accident. My parents were utterly shocked. I was already 3 years old when I was abandoned, with only vague memories of it. I remember it was winter. My mother, who usually treated me with indifference, suddenly hugged me with a smile and asked if I wanted to go to the amusement park. Overjoyed, I followed her out the door. For the first time ever, she bought me a caramel apple and told me to wait for her at the entrance while she went to buy tickets. I waited and waited. By the time I finished the caramel apple and darkness fell, my mother still hadn't returned. It was the dead of winter, and I was so cold that my limbs grew numb, crying for my mother in fear and shock. Many people around pointed at me, but no one spoke to me. With tears streaming down my face, I cried out, "Mom, where are you? I promise I'll never eat caramel apples again, never go to theme parks again. Please don't abandon me." Yet no one answered. Strangely enough, though I was only 3 years old then, I already vaguely sensed that my mother hadn't just gotten lost, she had abandoned me. Because my mother truly detested me, even to the point of hatred. Since the family already had my elder sister, and I was yet another daughter, my birth shattered my mother's dream of bearing a son. From the moment I was born, she treated me like an enemy, frequently beating and scolding me, often depriving me of meals. I felt utterly helpless, standing on the street with no idea what to do. I had almost never been allowed outside and completely didn't recognize the way home. Just as I was crying myself hoarse, a woman in a thick jacket hurried over, crouched down to hug me, and took off her coat to wrap around me. The coat still carried her body warmth. It was really cozy. With my face wet from snot and tears, I buried myself in her embrace and whispered softly, "Madam, my mom doesn't want me anymore." At the time, my foster mother thought I was just being a clueless kid saying nonsense. Righteously indignant, she took me to the police station where they traced my mother through my name, then immediately brought me to my family's doorstep. "Your child is missing. How can you parents just sit calmly at home like this?" My foster mother grew somewhat angry seeing my biological mother casually coming to open the door. The moment my mother saw me, her first reaction was to tightly furrow her brows and curse my adoptive mother. "Mind your own business, what's it to you?" With this one sentence, my adoptive mother realized she had indeed deliberately abandoned me. After arguing with my mother for a while, my mother simply refused to take me back. Finally, in a fit of anger, my adoptive mother blurted out, "If you don't want such a good child, I'll raise her." With that, she carried me away. Back then, however, she was only in her 20s, already with a biological son at home. When she brought me back, her heart pounded with anxiety, fearing my adoptive father wouldn't agree. My adoptive father was indeed startled at first, but the moment he saw me, his heart softened. He pushed me near the fireplace and gave me warm water to drink. A child so small with hands covered in frostbite, what a wretched sight. He lowered his head and thought for a long while, then finally sighed and said, "Since I've already brought her home, I can't just throw her back. Let me figure something out and file formal adoption papers for the child." Because my biological mother had wanted a son, she never registered my birth in the 3 years since I was born. So after my adoptive father spent all his savings and borrowed more money from my grandmother to cover the legal fees, I officially became part of their family. My original name was Jane Wilson, my biological father was Frank Wilson, and my biological mother was Brenda Wilson. Then I got a new name, Chloe Miller, because my parents wished for me to live peacefully. The process of integrating into the new family went smoothly since this lifetime had no daughters, and the grandchildren were all boys. Surprisingly, my grandparents grew quite fond of me, especially Grandma, who said my round face looked auspicious and doted on me immensely. My brother Ethan also adored me. He had always wanted a younger sister and, though just slightly older than me, acted like a little adult in pampering me. At my new home, I tasted turkey legs for the first time, wore new clothes, and visited Disneyland. But the small town was indeed too tiny. Though my adoptive parents tried to keep me from meeting my biological parents, I still ran into them when I was 4 years old. It happened on Christmas Eve the following year. My parents packed lots of luggage and prepared to take my brother and me back to the countryside by bus for the holidays. Back then, long-distance buses didn't go into villages. They only stopped at the town's central station, so we had to find our own way back to the village. As luck would have it, our family ended up buying tickets for the same train as my birth parents. Brenda recognized me at a glance and shrank away in disgust, as if there was something filthy about me. My mom recognized Brenda too, her face darkening as she quickly pulled me aside to sit down. My dad also reacted like facing a formidable enemy, terrified that Brenda's family might try to claim me back. Brenda couldn't resist sneering at their nervous expressions. "What's the big deal? Treating some girl like treasure. Look how scared you all are. Don't worry, I already have a son. You're welcome to keep this jinx if you like." As she spoke, she gently stroked her slightly rounded belly, beaming with joy. I was too young at the time to remember her clearly, nor did I understand what she was talking about. My mother's expression instantly darkened, and she was about to retort while holding me, but my brother moved faster. Like an enraged calf, he charged furiously toward Brenda. "My little sister isn't a jinx, you wicked woman." My father quickly stopped him and shot Brenda a glance. "We already have a son, we're not desperate for one. Our Chloe is just fine. You'd better watch out though, lest you actually give birth to a real jinx." My father's words were cutting as ever. Seeing his long-awaited son insulted, Frank immediately stood up, ready to throw hands with my dad. But at this moment, I suddenly felt an inexplicable wave of distress and burst into tears. Between sobs, I choked out, "Mom, I feel awful. I want to get off the car." My mother was terrified and checked me all over. "Chloe, where does it hurt? Is it your stomach?" With tears in my eyes, I said, "I don't know. I just feel terrible." "Mom, can we please not take this train? I don't want to ride anymore." This was the last Christmas bus running. Otherwise my mother wouldn't have grudgingly boarded the same vehicle as Brenda. But my parents didn't hesitate for a second. They snatched me up and got right off that bus. Behind us, Brenda cackled loudly. "This was the final bus. I told you that thing was a bad omen. A jinx. With all its problems, watch it doesn't take all your good luck with it." Mom couldn't even be bothered with her anymore, her face deathly pale as she rushed me straight to the hospital. But as soon as I got out of the car, I felt fine. My parents still weren't reassured, so they took me for a checkup. The doctor said I was in great health with no issues, and only then did they relax. After leaving the hospital, we no longer had the car, so my parents had to take me and my brother home. The four of us spent the holiday together before heading to a public phone booth to call my grandparents back in our hometown and explain the situation. We told them we'd return first thing the next morning. My grandparents weren't upset at all. They just reminded us to be careful on the road. But the next morning, as soon as we reached the bus station, we could tell the atmosphere was strangely tense. The driver's face was unusually grim. Back then, bus drivers were typically carefree. They'd driven the route at least 800 if not 1,000 times and knew it by heart. Regulations were lax in those days, and some drivers even drank a little while operating the vehicles. But this time, the driver was sitting bolt upright with a stern expression. My mother grew curious and discreetly asked the conductor, "What's going on here? Did something happen?" The conductor, being a gossip by nature, lowered her voice to tell my mother, "Hey, it's because of that last train ride yesterday. The whole day went smoothly without any issues, but then the very last train derailed and plunged straight into the canyon." Damn, my mom instantly broke out in a cold sweat, and even my dad sat up straight in his seat. The ticket conductor went back to selling tickets, but my parents couldn't calm down anymore. My dad wiped the sweat from his forehead, his voice trembling. "The last trip, was that the one we took yesterday?" My mother's face also turned pale. "That's the car, my God. If Chloe hadn't been fussing about feeling unwell, we would've." She hugged me tight, as if drawing some reassuring strength from me. "Our Chloe is truly a little lucky star. She saved Mom and Dad's lives." My father reached over to snatch me into his arms. "Damn right. Brenda kept calling her a jinx, but I told her yesterday, that unborn baby of hers is the real jinx." After returning to my hometown, my grandparents hugged me tightly, calling me their precious darling, and said with lingering fear, "You wouldn't know, several people died in that bus accident yesterday. The driver died instantly. Our dear Chloe is truly lucky, she saved both of you. You must treat her well." My mom laughed and said, "Mom, what are you talking about? Of course we'll treat our own child well. Oh, by the way, the Wilsons were also on that bus yesterday. How are they doing?" "The Wilsons?" My grandfather frowned. "He's lucky to be alive." My grandmother couldn't help chiming in, "Alive but crippled. His leg was broken apparently. Couldn't be treated here. The doctor said they'd have to amputate. They rushed him to the big hospital in the state capital last night." That wife of his, my grandmother glanced at me and, seeing me happily playing with the chicks alongside my brother without the slightest interest in their conversation, lowered her voice. "That wife of his lost the baby. Heard it was a boy, already fully formed too. Good Lord, how that man carried on. Cried himself half to death. Actually fainted from weeping." My dad couldn't help but gloat. "Serves them right. Calling our Chloe a jinx. I heard Frank quit his government job just to try for a son, and now he's lost both his job and the baby. Everything's gone down the drain." Mom gave him a light slap. "Stop celebrating." But then she couldn't help adding, "They deserved it, after calling our Chloe those names." I knew nothing about any of this, and my parents never told me. This was the first time my seemingly extraordinary good luck manifested, though my parents didn't pay much attention at the time. They just thought it was a coincidence. The series of events that followed confirmed my extraordinary luck, and my parents became convinced that I was truly the little lucky star of our family. After this narrow escape, our family's fortunes began to thrive. My parents went into business with friends, coinciding with several years of exceptional economic growth. Before long, they had established their own company. Our family circumstances improved significantly. By then I was already in elementary school, visiting my father's office every day after school to play. But that day when I visited, the normally cheerful uncles and aunties all wore unusually solemn expressions. Mom and Dad hurried out of the office. My mother crouched down in front of me and said, "Chloe, how about having big sister Jessica take you home today? Mom and Dad have something we need to attend to." I glanced around and pouted. "Where are you going? I want to come too." At the time I didn't think too much about it, nor could I put the feeling into words, but I really wanted to go with them. Normally I'm quite obedient. My mother seemed slightly taken aback by my request, but still tried to persuade me. "Mommy and Daddy have to take care of something very important. Chloe, be good, okay?" I lowered my head without speaking, resisting silently. My anxious father interjected, "There's no time. If Chloe wants to come, let her come along. But Chloe, you mustn't act up when we get there. Be obedient, understand?" I nodded cheerfully and followed them to the car in high spirits. Only later did I learn that this occurred during the most critical period of our family business, when my parents were going to negotiate an enormously important contract. If this deal is successful, our company's scale can reach new heights. If not, our capital chain might not hold any longer. This order may not be a matter of life or death, but it's still extremely important. That's why my parents are so anxious about it. We arrived at the entrance of a towering skyscraper. My parents went in first while I followed behind with Jessica, the secretary. But the moment we stepped inside, all three of us were stunned. Standing in the lobby were a few people, and at the front, none other than Frank Wilson and Brenda Wilson. Talk about a twist of fate. That car accident years ago left this couple fortunate to survive, but not without serious injuries. Frank's leg was sent to several hospitals in succession, but they still couldn't save it. After suffering for a full day and night, they ultimately had to amputate. But that wasn't even the worst of it. The real tragedy was that during the fall, he also sustained injuries to his vital areas. The doctors said it would be very difficult for him to father children again. This couple truly proved the saying, like attracts like. When Brenda miscarried, she hemorrhaged so severely that her uterus had to be removed, forever dashing any hopes of bearing a son. It's laughable to think that these two people were willing to abandon their own daughter just to have a son, and now they've both been sterilized. Neither can think about having kids anymore. They threw all their energy into business instead and shockingly managed to establish a company, operating in a direction quite similar to my family's. Their story spread through the town for a long time afterward. After the spectacle, people couldn't help but sigh in pity. I heard there was a family in town who, upon learning through a checkup that they were expecting a daughter, wanted an abortion. But after hearing about what happened to those two, they didn't dare go through with it, terrified of suffering the same karma. When Frank saw us, his face darkened, and his hand resting at his side subtly brushed against his missing leg. He must have been fitted with a prosthesis. It wasn't very noticeable at first glance, though his stance still looked a bit unsteady. Brenda, however, couldn't contain herself. Her gaze practically burned with fury, as if she wanted nothing more than to strangle me right then and there. "You murderous wretch. You killed my son. Why don't you just drop dead?" She was about to step forward when my mother blocked her way. My mother raised an eyebrow. "You've done so many shameful things and brought this retribution upon yourself, yet you dare throw mud at my daughter? Seems like you still haven't learned your lesson." Old grudges and fresh anger surged in Brenda's heart. Furious, she reached out to grab at my mother. "Stop your nonsense. Every misfortune starts with you, your whole damn family." Just then, sudden laughter came from behind. "Everyone's arrived, I see. Mr. Miller and Mr. Wilson must both be quite interested in this order of mine. Please, come inside." Only then did my father react, frowning as he said, "Mr. Peterson, are they here to discuss cooperation too?" Mr. Peterson laughed and said, "I'm flattered by everyone's interest. Fine things are meant to be shared, after all." I turned my head to look at this smiling man and slightly furrowed my brows. The man before me appeared to be in his 30s or 40s. He wore a well-pressed black suit with a finely tailored overcoat draped over his shoulders. Quite tall in stature, he looked rather sharp from his outward appearance. Yet his eyes, hidden behind frameless glasses, held not a trace of warmth. His entire demeanor gave off a smiling but not really vibe, carrying an air of something rather sinister. My first instinct was that I didn't like him, but Dad had just told me to behave, so I obediently stayed quiet, merely clutching tighter at the hem of my father's coat. The group arrived at Mr. Peterson's conference room and took their seats. Being young and insignificant, no one paid me any attention, nor did they chase me out, so they proceeded with their discussion right in front of me. Gentlemen, you know the kind of man Richard Peterson is. If it weren't for the urgent need for funds at the American branch this time, I wouldn't have slashed the price this low. However, the specifics of the negotiation still depend on Mr. Wilson and Mr. Miller. Then it dawned on me, my family was competing with the Wilsons for the same order. This Peterson guy had called both parties together solely to drive up the price, forcing my father and Frank to bid higher. Frank cast a scornful glance at my father and said firmly, Mr. Peterson, quality comes at a price, that much I understand. I'm willing to raise my offer by 5%. My dad's expression changed instantly as he quickly countered, I'll add 8%. I looked at the man who was grinning like a fox, feeling inexplicably uneasy, and quietly asked my sister Jessica beside me, Big sis, who is this person? I think he looks really shady. Jessica was startled and immediately covered my mouth. After glancing around to make sure no one noticed, she leaned down and whispered in my ear, This is Mr. Peterson, the new big shot in our city. He just arrived early this year. His family's business is much larger than ours, with major companies even in California. Don't worry, he wouldn't cheat us out of our money. He's done several deals with us before. The goods were excellent quality, and his reputation is impeccable. I didn't fully understand everything she said, but I gathered she was praising this Mr. Peterson. Yet I still disliked him intensely, even found him somewhat repulsive. I always felt there was something indescribable in his eyes, like a spectator watching two clowns, carrying a superior sense of mockery. Over there, my dad and Frank were already engaged in fierce bidding, so Mr. Peterson simply called for a break to let everyone discuss. Once we left the room, my parents looked anxious as they said, His goods are truly excellent. Even with a 30% markup on the current market price, we'd still profit. Plus, this deal could open up the state capital's market. We could expand there in the future. My mom hesitated, but that would drain our savings, and we'd still need to take out a loan. If anything goes wrong, our family would be ruined. I walked over and grabbed my dad's hand, shaking it. Dad, don't do business with him, okay? I don't like this person. My dad forced a smile to pacify me. Be good, Chloe. Daddy will take you for something delicious after finishing this talk. Don't cause a scene now. Clearly, he mistook me for an impatient child throwing a tantrum. I wanted to say more, but he called Jessica over to take me aside to play. I knew he wouldn't believe me no matter what I said, so I had no choice but to leave with Jessica, sulking in silence. After discussing for a while, my parents finally made up their minds. Let's go for this one deal. If we win, we'll strike it rich. Richard Peterson's past few transactions all went smoothly. There's no reason ours should be any different. When we re-entered the meeting room, Frank had clearly made his decision too and started bidding against my father all the way. 10%, 15%. My father gritted his teeth. I'll raise it to 18%. Frank sneered and pressed relentlessly. 20%. By this point, our profit margin had already been significantly squeezed. Daddy's face turned pale, but after exchanging a glance with Mom, he still fiercely declared, It's 25%. How about that, Mr. Peterson? This price is unprecedented. Richard Peterson rested his chin on his hands and smiled silently. 30%. Frank beside him spoke up, staring at my father with an expressionless face, a flicker of hatred flashing in his eyes. Clearly, that incident years ago made both him and Brenda resent my family. For people like them, seeing others unharmed is worse than suffering misfortune themselves. They would blame everything they've endured on others, seeking an outlet for their pent-up anger. My father broke into a cold sweat on his forehead, glanced at my mother, and was about to speak again. Just then, I spoke up. Frowning, I said, Dad, don't do business with this man. I dislike him. My father's words stuck in his throat as he turned to look at me in shock. In an instant, you could have heard a pin drop in the meeting room, with all eyes fixed on me. What nonsense are you talking about, Chloe? My mother snapped out of her shock and hurried over to cover my mouth, forcing a smile at Richard Peterson as she apologized. Kids don't know any better. Please don't take it seriously. Brenda seized the opportunity right away and sneered loudly. Of all the inappropriate moments, how dare your kid spout such nonsense? Don't you two ever teach your child any manners at home? That was basically calling me poorly raised. Frank chimed in, Well, Mr. Miller, kids don't just make things up like that. Could it be she overheard you saying something in private? That's a bit. He glanced at Richard Peterson and smiled. Too disrespectful, isn't it? These two lines hit right where it hurt, and the smile on Richard Peterson's face faded slightly. My dad quickly explained, No, Mr. Peterson, how could I? Kids say the darndest things, just childish nonsense. I'm not talking nonsense. I protested loudly. I genuinely don't like him, Dad. Don't let him fool you. In the business world, the word deception carries immense weight. Richard Peterson's expression completely collapsed as he said coldly, "Since your daughter has already spoken, it would be unreasonable for me to force the issue. Mr. Wilson, this order is yours. We'll sign the contract shortly. Mr. Miller, since we followed different paths with no common purpose, I can only bid you farewell." With that, he stood up to show us the door. No matter how my father tried to explain, he refused to listen, swiftly signing the contract with Frank without hesitation. Frank finished signing, then looked up at my father with a mocking gaze, saying smugly, "Mr. Miller, you sure raised a fine daughter. Thanks to her, I'm lucky enough to have this privilege. So, thank you." My father's face turned ashen. "Yes, I told you back then, she's nothing but bad luck, a disaster waiting to happen. Yet you dismissed my warning, insisted on keeping that troublemaker in the house, and now look what's come of it." Brenda finally had her chance to vent, and her words grew increasingly cutting. "Mr. Miller, we'll gratefully accept this order. What a shame, once we move to the state capital, we probably won't have the chance to meet again." Frank paused, his grin laced with malice. "Your cash flow must be stretched thin by now, David. You barely scraped by back then. Soon enough, you'll pay for it dearly." Brenda glared at me with hatred. "That little beast will get you all killed sooner or later. Just wait." Now my parents didn't even have the energy left to argue. With grim expressions, they took me and left. The moment we stepped out, my mom couldn't resist scolding me. "Chloe, what did we agree on before coming out? Didn't you promise Mommy you'd be good?" "I'm a bit upset," I said. "I'm not being disobedient, but I really don't like him." My dad sighed and stepped in to mediate. All right. Chloe might not be entirely wrong. Back then, when she said she wasn't feeling well, it actually saved our lives. But soon he couldn't continue either. Richard Peterson's credibility had always been impeccable, and with his vast business empire, this order appeared foolproof from any angle. For the next few days, the atmosphere at home was rather gloomy. Without this batch of goods, our family business couldn't keep up with market demand, and our cash flow nearly collapsed. My parents had to beg and plead everywhere before finally securing a loan from a few acquaintances, barely managing to stay afloat. Over at the Wilson residence, however, it was a completely different story. Every day was filled with joy, and they even gave each employee a special bonus. On our way back to town, it became increasingly evident that more and more people were singing the praises of the Wilsons. Some of their relatives even went out of their way to provoke our family, deliberately mentioning matters related to the Wilsons' company. "I heard their order is going smoothly. That batch of goods has already arrived at the port. It will hit the market within the next few days as soon as it clears." My parents have been utterly exhausted these days, looking much more haggard. Though I firmly believe in my own judgment, I can't help feeling somewhat guilty. When I saw my dad's eyes completely bloodshot at the company again, I couldn't help but walk over and whisper, "Dad, did I do something wrong?" My father didn't answer. He knelt down and patted my head, exhaustion and tenderness blending in his expression. "It's all right, Chloe. Don't worry about what happened at home. Just remember to listen to Mom and Dad from now on, and please don't do this again." Jessica shook her head on the side and sighed. "Mr. Miller, you should go rest for a while. You'll still need to discuss business later, and you haven't had any proper rest these past few days while running around for the loan." The personnel officer frowned and said, "But Mr. Miller, we won't even be able to pay next month's payroll with our current accounts. I'm afraid if this continues." "It's fine." My dad waved his hand, his voice hoarse. "I'll go to the bank again this afternoon. Heaven never seals off all the exits." Just then, the front door was suddenly thrown open, and the sales manager's face appeared in the doorway. He looked frantic, beads of sweat on his forehead too urgent to wipe, panting heavily from running too fast. My dad was stunned. "What's going on?" His expression changed immediately. "Has something else happened? Is it the Wilsons, or the bank?" Gasping for breath, the sales manager could barely get the words out. It's the Wilsons." My father stood up, his expression grave. "What's the Wilson family done this time? Tripping us up again?" No. The sales manager frantically waved his hands, catching his breath as two beams of light seemed to shoot from his eyes. "Mr. Miller, your daughter is absolutely miraculous. That Richard Peterson truly was a fraud. The Wilsons are currently searching for him, nearly out of their minds with anxiety." My father? For a moment, everyone was too stunned to react, not uttering a single word. The sales manager finally stood up, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and exclaimed excitedly, "Exactly. Last month, that batch of goods was said to have arrived at the port, but Richard Peterson kept dragging his feet, one day saying the paperwork was in progress, the next claiming there was some issue with customs and we'd have to wait. Frank kept waiting, and guess what? The sales manager's old habit flared up again. My dad grew impatient and snapped, "Out with it. Do you think this is some storytelling session where you can keep us in suspense?" The sales manager scratched his head sheepishly. "Well, it turns out Richard Peterson ran off a few days ago. At first, Frank had no idea, but when he went to his company to check, the place was already empty, nothing left at all. Later, Frank had someone check on that company he had in California. They went to the tax office to investigate, and damn, turned out it was just a shell company, registered specifically to scam people. They'd hit and run, and by then, the guy had already vanished. He's a professional conman. I heard he'd already pulled the same scam several times down south. His reputation was dirt. It's just that up here in the north, we were too far away to hear about it, so we fell right into his trap. The HR person gasped. I heard that order was worth over 18 million. It cleaned out the Wilsons' entire savings. Could they even handle that? Handle it or not, what does it matter? The sales manager winked. He's just plain unlucky. Now both the company and the scammer have vanished. By this point, they could have reached the other side of the globe. Where's he supposed to look? I heard they can't even pay their employees now. Workers are raiding the warehouse to grab stuff as compensation. What a mess. The bank's already sent people knocking, threatening to foreclose on their property if loans aren't repaid. Other companies owed goods came demanding shipments too. Their entrance looked like Black Friday madness. I nearly got crushed in the crowd. So this guy went scouting the enemy's situation. No wonder he's exhausted. The adults exchanged glances, shock visible in each other's eyes. Just moments ago everyone was upset about losing this deal. How did fortune suddenly turn around? I tell you, our young lady is truly amazing. She saw right through that fraud from the very start. Chloe, my father turned to me with disbelief etched across his face. How did you know he was a fraud? I thought for a moment. His eyes were revolting. The way he looked at you all was like he was staring at fools. My father. But moments later, his spirits lifted, and he cheerfully waved his hand. Come on, let's celebrate today. Everyone gets a day off. We're going out to enjoy the excitement. We drove straight to the entrance of the Wilson family's company, only to realize the sales manager hadn't been exaggerating. Several groups of people were blocking the entrance. There were bank staff in full suits, people shouting at the top of their lungs demanding Frank repay debts, and employees hurriedly carrying belongings in and out. Frank's face was ashen as he wearily repeated his explanation. Everyone, we got scammed too. Just give me some time to recover our funds. Once the money comes in, I swear I'll repay every penny. Bullshit. A beefy bald man spat viciously. Nobody forced you to get scammed. Selling premium goods 30% below market rate? Even an idiot could smell something fishy. I heard Mr. Miller went too, but he didn't buy anything. Looks like your brain isn't cut out for business. Might as well hand over the money now. We've got Christmas waiting at home. Yeah. Out of so many people, how come only you got scammed? They say Mr. Miller almost fell for it too. It was his daughter who pointed out the guy was a con artist, so he backed out. Amid the chatter around us, my father flushed crimson and reached out to pat my head. It's all thanks to you, otherwise Dad would really be done for now. Brenda shouted, it's not like we wanted this. We don't have the money. If you've got the guts, go demand it from Richard Peterson. She had lost a lot of weight these past few days, her already high cheekbones now even more pronounced, making her look practically skin and bones. The bald man sneered, it's not Richard Peterson who owes us money. Why would we go after him? We're coming for you. Are you going to pay up or not? No way. Fine. The bald man rolled up his sleeves and charged forward, startling Brenda, who quickly hid behind Frank. Frank, hindered by his movements, was knocked to the ground before he could react. After a few kicks, several others joined in shoving him. His prosthetic leg came off in the chaos, leaving him incapacitated with only one leg, sprawled in the dirt, utterly humiliated. I heard him let out a piercing scream, pounding the ground with his fists with such force that his knuckles bled, yet he didn't hold back. My dad's heart softened in the end, unable to bear watching. $18 million. His family must have borrowed heavily. Life's going to be hard for them from now on. If it weren't for Chloe, I'd be the one lying there now. Exactly, the sales manager said to me with great admiration. Chloe's a lucky charm, brimming with good fortune. Mr. Miller, I heard Chloe even saved your lives once. My dad paused for a moment. That's right. She was still little back then. Her mother and I were carrying her into the car when she started saying she felt sick and insisted on getting out. We thought she was just being a restless child in the car. But that evening, the car rolled over, many died, and that's how Frank lost his leg. So much time has passed, yet he still shudders with fear when recalling it. You were right. Chloe is our little lucky star. That evening when I arrived home, I received an unusually grand welcome. My dad vividly recounted the incident to my mom and brother. My mom was first astonished, then couldn't stop hugging and kissing me. My precious daughter, you've saved our family again. My goodness, that was $18 million. If we'd been tricked, we'd probably be living in homeless shelters by now. Exactly, you should have seen Frank's face. My dad clicked his tongue sympathetically. What a miserable sight. My mom also sighed with emotion, when suddenly my brother coldly interjected, that whole family looks like bad luck walking bound for disaster sooner or later. He'd never forgotten how Brenda had insulted me before, still holding that grudge. After this incident, my parents started taking my opinions more seriously, making sure to include me in every partnership discussion from then on. I usually keep quiet, but whenever there's a problem, I'll stop my dad. Soon our family business flourished, even expanding to the state capital. Somehow that incident got leaked and spread throughout the town. Many people secretly mocked the Wilsons, and some even went to their doorstep deliberately to taunt them. Had a lucky daughter but threw her away, heartlessly giving her to others. Now they can't even have a son while all their good fortune vanished. Isn't that ironic? Just born poor, that's all. Had a kid to bring luck to another family while suffering the consequences myself. Two gossiping women were chuckling by the doorway when Brenda couldn't take it anymore. Disheveled, she rushed out hysterically, "You damned hag spewing shit. What business is it of yours to gossip about my family? What's got you so riled up?" One woman chuckled leisurely, utterly unperturbed. "I wasn't even talking about you, and here you are freaking out." Spotting me passing by, Brenda, who'd been ready to unleash more curses, suddenly fell silent. She didn't scold me as before. Instead, she looked at me with a complicated expression in her eyes. A bit frightened, I immediately ran back home. We thought the Wilsons would quiet down after these two incidents, but unexpectedly, on the eve of my semester starting, as the whole family sat together watching TV, we suddenly saw Brenda while channel surfing. It was our local station, quite tacky, really, none of us usually cared to watch it. My mother suddenly straightened up. Was that just? Clearly everyone had seen it, exchanging glances before immediately looking away. On television, Brenda was wailing at the top of her lungs but making a mountain out of a molehill. Not a single tear was shed. "My child," she shrieked. "My child who's been missing for 12 years, my own flesh and blood, taken by someone who refuses to bring her back. Why must fate be so cruel to me?" Frank stood silently by her side, sorrow etched across his face. The host couldn't help showing pity as she addressed the camera. "Ms. Brenda says her child was abducted at age 3, and she only recently found her. But the abductors refused to return the child, even convincing the girl that her parents abandoned her. What kind of tragedy could separate a mother and daughter for so many years? Let's now hear Ms. Brenda's story." Brenda eagerly took the microphone. "I took my daughter to the theme park when she was 3. Just went to buy a caramel apple, and when I turned around, she was gone. All these years I've kept searching, but no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't find her. A daughter is flesh of her mother's flesh. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, always thinking about my girl." Her performance was so heartfelt, her words mingled with tears, that even the host was visibly moved. Only my parents were fuming with rage. Even my mother, who's usually so composed, couldn't help but burst out swearing. How utterly shameless. How dare she say that? Afraid it would upset me, my parents suppressed their anger and had my brother take me back to my room, telling me not to look at any of that nonsense. But who would have thought? The very next day during class, my teacher called me outside. The office was packed with people, even a local news reporter was there. The moment Brenda saw me, she came weeping and threw herself at me. "My child, my daughter, I'm your real mother." I froze for a moment, then recoiled in disgust. "I already have a mother, stay the hell away from me. Look at this." Brenda's eyes flashed with disgust as she raised her voice. "It's all because of that trafficking family. They turned her into this, keeping my own daughter from recognizing me." I flew into a rage. "Who are you calling names? It was you who abandoned me because you wanted a boy. My adoptive mother was the one who took me in. You're a liar." Everyone turned to look at Brenda, who froze. Frank, standing beside her, broke the silence. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a sickening affectation, and whispered in a low voice, "Child, is this what they told you? We are your real parents. Where in this world would parents not love their own child? Don't let them fool you." Exactly, even the host chimed in disapprovingly. "Child, you're being so unreasonable. No parents are entirely without faults, yet you'd believe the words of kidnappers? You're just defending your abductors." I was furious and desperately tried to argue my case, but no one would listen to me. Brenda drowned out my voice with her constant shouting. The office door was left open, and many classmates outside were watching the commotion. Seeing her vulgar behavior flush her face red, I felt utterly humiliated. That day, people tried persuading me for a long time, but no one believed me. I left the office crying in grievance. Jessica, the secretary who came to pick me up, was terrified and quickly sent me back inside. When my parents heard about what happened that day, they trembled with fury. They never imagined those two could be so vicious as to directly target a mere child like me. Through some unknown means, the Wilsons managed to get today's incident featured on the news almost immediately. The story spread like wildfire throughout our small town. It even spread online, where some busybodies uploaded the video to TikTok. The traffic quickly snowballed, and it actually made it to the trending list. The video was cunningly edited. Brenda's wailing contrasted starkly with my impassive demeanor, painting them as pitiable parents who had lost their child. It was heartbreaking to watch. Netizens were outraged and immediately began hurling curses. Child traffickers deserve to die. They should rot in prison for life. That mother is crying her heart out. If my child had been missing for so long, I'd be shattered. The child is so heartless, being so cold to her own mother. Might as well have given birth to a stone. She must have been brainwashed. The traffickers kept her, so of course they'd say bad things about her birth parents. We tried to defend ourselves down below, but no one believed us. The comments didn't even make a ripple. Someone leaked our home phone number somehow. My parents kept getting harassing calls and curse-filled texts every day. The company's office phone was bombarded with calls, and even many uninformed clients terminated their partnerships with my dad. This incident nearly destroyed our lives. At first, we thought it might blow over once the hype died down, but the Wilsons seemed determined not to let us off. The uproar only grew louder with each new wave. They came to our home triumphantly, demanding to take me away. This child belongs to our family. You shameless thieves stole our child. Brenda laughed victoriously. Hand over the child now, or I'll ruin your reputation. My father's face turned livid as he couldn't help but curse. Bullshit. It was you who rejected Chloe because she's a girl. Haven't you any shame? Frank chuckled darkly, lighting a cigarette. Mr. Miller, arguing now is pointless. But Chloe is indeed our child. We've failed her in the past, but that can be made up for. You keeping someone else's child, that's hardly proper, is it? Fuck you. My dad cursed and was about to rush forward, but my mom stopped him, pointing at Frank's nose and shouting, "Don't think I don't know what you're scheming. If you want to take Chloe away, you'll have to step over my dead body first." Fine, you've got guts. Frank gave her a thumbs up and spat on the ground. I'll watch how you die. They can drown you with just one spit each. Small towns have little excitement, and gossip about this incident lingered for a long time. People began blocking the entrance of my father's company. Some delivered funeral wreaths, others barred the gates, cursing anyone they saw. We approached the production team to clarify matters, but they refused to let go of the hype, giving us nothing but empty platitudes. We had an insider film and explanatory video, only to be bombarded with accusations of being frauds who deserved to die horribly. The initial episode had gone too viral. Everyone believed Brenda's claims. Just when we were nearly giving up hope, a video suddenly surfaced online. It was a chat log between Brenda and Frank, apparently recorded by the surveillance cameras in his home. In the video, Brenda and Frank were sitting on the sofa, casually chatting. While filing her toenails impatiently, Brenda said, "That little brat actually has some tricks up her sleeve. Guess what? I had someone divine her fortune. She's got exceptionally good luck. She brings prosperity to her family at home, thrives her husband when she's out, and flourishes by herself when alone. In short, she's got a rare blessed fate. What terrible luck. My son didn't get this good fortune. It's all because this little bastard stole his place." She gnashed her teeth in hatred. If only we could have another child, how could it ever be her turn? Frank frowned. Enough. What's the use of talking about this now? The important thing is figuring out how to get her back. There really is something sinister about her. Why did you have to throw her away? Keeping her at home to collect a dowry would have been better. That's even better. Brenda shot him a withering glare. We won't have to raise them ourselves. Just reap what others have sown. Then we can make them serve us for the rest of their lives to pay off their debt. That little wretch doesn't even acknowledge her own parents anymore. She never stops to think where she'd be without us. What an ungrateful creature. Alright, Frank stubbed out his cigarette. I'll take that host out for another meal later. The greedy bastard, still trying to squeeze more money out of us. Just you wait. Once my show airs, I'm reporting him. The image quality is crystal clear, with every facial expression vividly captured. In no time, this twist-filled incident skyrocketed in popularity, even soaring straight to the national trending list. Hashtag human trafficking scam, hashtag Brenda and Frank Wilson. Hashtag the Illinois scammer couple had the internet in an uproar, with furious netizens grabbing their keyboards to unleash a torrent of abuse. Damn, I can't believe how shameless this scheming couple is. It really was a scam all along. They abandoned her just because she was a girl, and now they have the nerve to swoop in and reap the benefits? The audacity. Wait, doesn't this qualify as child abandonment? I remember the adoptive parents saying they dumped her in winter when she was just 3. Isn't that attempted murder? I feel quite ashamed. I actually saw that clarification video before but thought it was fake, so I ended cursing at them. I'll go apologize right away. Same here. Adding my apology. Netizens dug up that this footage had actually leaked from an appliance repair shop. The Frank's home surveillance system happened to be sent for repair during those days. While fixing it, the shop owner casually browsed through some recordings and unexpectedly stumbled upon this particular clip. He remembered watching Brenda's emotionally charged missing person appeals on TV and had genuinely sympathized with her. Seeing the couple's true colors like this made him so furious that he decided to leak the video outright. Though this might not be considered morally sound, netizens are overwhelmingly cheering it on. Brenda and Frank's reputations are completely ruined across town. Many local netizens who felt deceived have gone to their house to block the door, even splashing paint and feces on it. From numerous TikTok videos shared by netizens, I saw Brenda rushing out to argue, only to be drenched in feces by the crowd. The filth dripped down her entire body, causing her to scream briefly before quickly clamping her mouth shut. The local merchants united to boycott the Wilson family. Frank had just managed to secure a sum of money through donations from enthusiastic netizens, planning to make a fresh start. But suddenly, he was dragged to court and forced to cough up the money. Frank was unwilling to comply and decided to flee secretly with the cash, not even taking Brenda with him. Perhaps he was in too much of a hurry or somewhat guilty. He ran a red light while crossing the street and was immediately hit by a truck. Well, now he lost his other leg and could only lie in bed indefinitely. Brenda, who was supposed to take care of him, watched as he ran off with the money, sending her into a furious rage. In her anger, she simply left him lying in bed to die. Thinking this was already tragic enough, things took a worse turn when netizens reported them to the police for child abandonment. Logically speaking, given that there were no surveillance footage or evidence from back then, it would generally be hard to convict them. But the incident blew up too much, with netizens vehemently outraged, and to make matters worse, the two practically confessed their crimes themselves. The police checked the alert records from back then and discovered that the two people had never reported their lost child to the authorities afterward, nor had they ever searched for them. It was outright abandonment. Many townsfolk can also attest to this fact. With both eyewitness testimony and material evidence present, neither of these two could escape punishment. Each was sentenced to 3 years. The next time I saw the couple was during the court hearing, when my parents brought me along. Brenda's eyes lit up with immense intensity the moment she saw me. "Little Chloe, I'm your mother, your birth mother. Could you really bear to see me sentenced, Chloe? Say something, Chloe." Seeing me remain silent, her expression twisted. "What, cat got your tongue? Speak up, say you were abducted. Say it, damn you." I answered coldly, "You're the one who abandoned me. To this day you show no remorse, you deserve to rot in prison." Brenda flew into a rage and lashed out. "How dare you, you little bastard. If I'd known you'd bring me such misfortune, I should have drowned you in the toilet the day you were born." Order in the court. The judge frowned, and Brenda reluctantly clamped her mouth shut. Frank on the side also hung his head, having long lost the high spirits from when he successfully closed deals, now pale-faced with a gloomy expression. He looked up at me as if wanting to say something, but ultimately remained silent. "Ma'am, my mom doesn't want me anymore." 04. When I returned home, my parents seemed quite concerned about my mood and kept trying to cheer me up. "Chloe, should mom take you to the theme park?" my mother said, then immediately corrected herself upon realizing her mistake. "Let's go to the aquarium instead, and we can have delicious food after playing, okay?" I brightened with a smile. "Sounds good." After a while, my mother peeked at my expression and cautiously asked, "Chloe, do you think mom is good?" Perhaps it's because too much has happened recently, with overwhelming information online and too many voices whispering opinions in my ears, that even my mother has grown somewhat apprehensive. She continued, "Would you hate me? Would you think I'm terrible for sending your biological parents to jail?" I shook my head. "No, you are my real mom." My mother froze for a moment, then her expression became complicated. A faint smile crept onto her lips as the worry between her brows gradually faded. "You little smooth talker," she chuckled, tapping my forehead. "Always know just what to say." I chuckled softly. I was telling the truth. From the moment she wrapped her coat around me when I was 3 years old, she became my mother. At that instant, all previous blood ties were severed, and a new bond formed between us. The connection of blood is worthless without the nourishment of love, while the debt of nurturing can never be repaid in a lifetime. On that frigid street, she abruptly stopped her car, a woman in her 20s, and hastily took off her coat to give to me. From that moment on, I had a mother. The end.